God knows where I am. He's walking beside me and holding my hand. There's no need to worry and no need to fret, 'cause God knows my name and he'll never forget. Amen. Do you know, Nathaniel, there's a verse in the Bible that says, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Can you say it with me?
Yeah.
I will never
I will leave thee.
nor forsake thee.
Nor forsake thee.
It's in Hebrews 13:5.
That's an eel.
That's an L. You're right. Very good.
What's in the back?
Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a special song and story for you today. The song is by a friend of mine. We shared one of her other songs, Miss Irene Smith, God Knows My Name. It reminds us that God knows all about us. We hope you enjoy. The story for today is Moses the Kitten. It's another story by James Herriot about his time as a veterinarian. And our resident cat has decided to come and listen. There have been times in the winter when I regretted being a vet, and this looked like one of them. I had driven 12 miles from home, thinking all the time that the dales looked their coldest, not when they were covered with snow, but as now, when the first sprinkling streaked the bare flanks of the fells in bars of black and white, like the ribs of a crouching beast. And now, in front of me, was a farm gate rattling on its hinges as the wind shook it. The car, heaterless and draughty as it was, seemed like a haven in an uncharitable world, and I gripped the wheel tightly with my woolen-gloved hands for a few moments before opening the door. The wind almost tore the handle from my fingers as I got out, but I managed to crash the door shut before stumbling over the frozen mud to the gate. Muffled as I was in heavy coat and scarf pulled up to my ears, I could feel the icy gusts biting at my face, whipping up my nose and hammering painfully into the air spaces in my head. I had driven through and, streaming-eyed, was about to get back into the car when I noticed something unusual. There was a frozen pond just off the path, and among the rime-colored rushes which fringed the dead opacity of the surface, a small object stood out, shiny black. I went over and looked closer. It was a tiny kitten, probably about 6 weeks old. What do you think, Nathaniel? It was a tiny kitten. Let's see. It was a tiny kitten, probably about 6 weeks old, huddled and immobile, eyes tightly closed. Bending down, I poked gently at the furry body. It must be dead. A morsel like this couldn't possibly survive in such cold. But no, a spark of life. There was a spark of life because the mouth opened soundlessly for a second time, then closed. Quickly, I lifted the little creature and tucked it inside my coat. As I drove into the farmyard, I called to the farmer who was carrying 2 buckets out to the calf house. Got one of your kittens here, Mr. Butler. It must have strayed outside. Mr. Butler put down his buckets and looked blank. Kitten? We haven't got no kittens at present. I showed him my find and he looked puzzled. Well, that's a rum and there are no black cats on this spot. We've all sorts of colors, but no black uns. Well, he must have come from somewhere, I said, though I can't imagine anything so small traveling so far. It's rather mysterious. I held the kitten out, and he engulfed it with his big, work-roughened hand. Poor little beggar. He's only just alive. I'll take him into the house and see if the missus can do aught for him. In the farm kitchen, Mrs. Butler was all concern. Oh, what a shame! She smoothed back the bedraggled hair with one finger. And it's got such a pretty face. She looked up at me. What is it anyway, a him or a her? I took a quick look behind the hind legs. It's a tom. Right, she said. I'll get some warm milk into him, but first of all, we've got to give him the old cure. She went over to the fireside oven on the big black kitchen range, opened the door, and popped him inside. I smiled. It was the classical procedure when newborn lambs were found suffering from cold and exposure. Into the oven they went, and the results were often dramatic. Mrs. Butler left the door partly open, and I could just see the little black figure inside. He didn't seem to care much what was happening to him. The next hour I spent in the byre wrestling with the hind feet of a cow. The cleats were overgrown and grossly misshapen and upturned, causing the animal to hobble along on her heels. My job was to pare and hack away the excess horn, and my long-held opinion that the hind feet of a cow were never meant to be handled by man was thoroughly confirmed. We had a rope round the hock, and the leg pulled up over a beam on the roof, but the leg still pistoned back and forth while I hung on until my teeth rattled. By the time I had finished, the sweat was running into my eyes, and I had quite forgotten the cold day outside. Still, I thought, as I eased the kinks from my spine when I had finished, there were compensations. There was a satisfaction in the sight of the cow standing comfortably on two almost normal-looking feet. "Well, that's summat like," Mr. Butler grunted. "Come in the house and wash your hands." In the kitchen, I bent over the brown earthenware sink. I kept glancing across at the oven. Mrs. Butler laughed. "Oh, he's still with us. Come and have a look." It was difficult to see the kitten in the dark interior, but when I spotted him, I put my hand and touched him, and he turned his head towards me. "He's coming round," I said. "That hour in there has worked wonders." "Doesn't often fail," the farmer's wife lifted him out. "I think he's a tough 'un." She began to spoon warm milk into the tiny mouth. "I reckon we'll have him lapping in a day or two." "You're going to keep him, then?" "Too true we are. I'm going to call him Moses." "Moses?" "Aye, you found him among the rushes, didn't you?" I laughed. "That's right. It's a good name." I was on the Butler farm about a fortnight later, and I kept looking around for Moses. Farmers rarely have their cats indoors, and I thought that if the black kitten had survived, he would have joined the feline colony around the buildings. Farm cats have a pretty good time. They may not be petted or cosseted, but they always seem to me to lead a free, natural life. They're expected to catch mice, but if they're not so inclined, there's abundant food at hand, bowls of milk here and there, and the dog's dishes to be raided if anything is left over. I had seen plenty of cats around today, some flitting nervously away, others friendly and purring. There was a tabby loping gracefully across the cobbles, and a big tortoise shell was curled on the bed of straw at the warm end of the byre. Cats are connoisseurs of comfort. When Mr. Butler went in to fetch some hot water, I had a quick look at the bullock house, and a white Tom regarded me placidly from between the bars of the hay rack where he'd been taking a siesta. But there was no sign of Moses. I finished drying my arms and was about to make a casual reference to the kitten when Mr. Butler handed me my jacket. "Come round here with me if you've got a minute," he said. "I've somewhat to show you." I followed him through the door to the end and across a passage into the long, low-roofed piggery. He stopped at a pen about halfway down and pointed it inside. "Look there," he said. I leaned over the wall, and my face must have shown my astonishment, because the farmer burst into a shout of laughter. "That's somewhat new for you, isn't it?" "What do you see, buddy?"
The black pig.
"Yeah, but what's in the middle of the pigs? Do you see what's in the middle? See the little black one? That's not a pig. That's a kitty cat.
Yeah.
The kitty cat was there with the pigs." I stared unbelievingly down at a large sow stretched comfortably on her side, suckling a litter of about 12 piglets. And right in the middle of the long row was a furry, black, and incongruous was Moses. The wind is giving us trouble today. He had a teat in his mouth and was absorbing his nourishment with the same rapt enjoyment as his smooth-skinned fellows on either side. "What the—" I gasped. Mr. Butler was still laughing. "I thought you'd never seen anything like that before." I never had. "But how did it happen?" I still couldn't drag my eyes away. "It was the missus' idea," he replied. "When she got the little youth lapping milk, she took him out to find a right warm spot for him in the buildings. She settled on this pen because the sow, Bertha, just had a litter, and I had a heater in it and was grand and cozy." I nodded. "Sounds about right."
Has glue on it?
"Well, she put Moses in a bowl of milk in here," and the farmer went on, "but the little feller didn't stay by the heater very long. Next time I looked in, he was round at the milk bar." I shrugged my shoulders. "They say you see something new every day at this game, but this is something I had never heard of. Anyway, he looks well on it. Does he actually live on the sow's milk, or does he still drink from his bowl?" "Bit of both, I reckon. It's hard to say." Anyway, whatever mixture Moses was getting, he grew rapidly into a sleek, handsome animal with an unusually high gloss to his coat, which may or may not have been due to the porcine element of his diet. I never went to the Butlers without having a look in the pig pen. Bertha, his foster mother, seemed to find nothing unusual in this hairy intruder and pushed him around casually with pleasant grunts just as she did the rest of her brood. Moses, for his part, appeared to find the society of the pigs very congenial. When the piglets curled up together and settled down for sleep, Moses would be somewhere in the heap, and when his young colleagues were weaned at 8 weeks old, he showed his attachment to Bertha by spending most of his time with her. And it stayed that way over the years. Often he would be right inside the pen, rubbing himself happily along the comforting bulk of the sow. But I remember him best in his favorite place, crouching on the wall, looking down perhaps meditatively on what had been his first warm home. Moses the kitten. Thank you so much for watching with us today. We hope you enjoyed our story and our song. We'll see you next time.
Bye.